we are good.
All right, so I'll call the meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. All right, so first order of business. Actually, I know Dr. McCall has to leave a little bit early. He'd emailed me a little earlier. So I'll be shifting a few things, and Director Dede can cover the rest. But first, let's just get we'll stick to the agenda as much as possible, and then I'll jump around a little bit. So first order of business is approval of the minutes of August 18th, 2020. I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, are there any discussion on the minutes? I took a quick look at them and they sounded good to me. Seeing no issues, I'll do a roll call vote. Linda?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. So Daryl, just for the key things that I wanted to hit on, that I know some of it might require you. The really big things I think we want to hit are the HVAC info per building, just to go a little bit more in depth from yesterday. There were some of the questions from the previous meeting. There wasn't really building specific topics raised yesterday, so I think we can, unless anybody can think of something, we'll kind of skip that one. And then, I do have the email you sent on the safety and security for health records and remote learning plan. So we'll hit that. And then the fields and outdoor facilities used by the public. I know you had emailed me and said you were going to be talking to Selectman Levine about that. So what would be your desire to, what order would you like to go in?
Why don't we just start with some more conversations around the buildings? I can go into a little more detail versus last night. And I'm just pulling up and I'll just talk through some of this because again, when we went through, I think I think everyone was part of what we were doing last night here. I'll talk through each building and we'll kind of go from there. So would that work, Adam?
Yeah, that works. And I know a lot of it's the HVAC, but if there's, maybe focus on that. But if there's other key things that people either think of, just jump in on that building, or if there's anything you want to highlight or if there's any specific issues.
Sure. So, I know Jeff brought up screens last night, and definitely something we're going to have to think through a little bit more. We did have, we do have schools, like I said, and I think, Jeff, this is specifically Glenwood in particular, but there are some schools that have some screen issues. Typically, it's not, it's an issue in September, beginning of October, when you have the weather where you still have the yellow jackets. But during the winter months into the spring, it's not really that big of a deal. But we're going to look at how we can deal with that. In terms of HVAC systems and what we're looking at, a couple different things. So first and foremost, I think I talked about this. I know I talked about this last night, but we're buying the air circulation meters, the airflow meters. So that's one for each building, and that's specifically for our custodians to be able to go into a room and check. So whether or not we have a system that's established where we do this proactively and we're going around doing this once a week, okay, just letting the systems run and check, or we do it in a way where that becomes a way for us to test a system that doesn't seem to be working correctly. A teacher, talks to their administrator and says, hey, I think something's, up with my HVAC system. They can bring in their not only the airflow meter, but also the carbon dioxide meter, which will, test the air at the same time. So, what we're trying to do is really focusing on the quality of the air and ultimately kind of the airflow moving throughout the building. And DESI has some pretty not specific requirements, but they do talk about just air ventilation and moving air around. And I know I said this last night, some districts have purchased, box fans that they're putting into classroom windows, pointing in and pointing out so that the airflow moves around. I've heard a range of basically 3 air exchanges an hour, up to 6, I think, which would be on the high side of it. But what we're trying to do is really provide the opportunity for all of our systems to work the way that they were designed to work. So that's exactly what our HVAC person is doing right now. So at Central Tree, we have our HVAC system is working throughout the building in the classrooms, but we do have a system that on top of the roof that works, but we're having a problem communicating with it. So because of the communication issue, it's a 22-year-old building now, going on 23 years old, and the pad that's actually up on the roof, that you actually have to climb up on the roof. So Craig will go up on if you're familiar with Central Tree, it's the right side of the building if you're looking at the front of it. And you're way up there and you're actually going into the system, opening up the HVAC system and punching in the codes in order to make sure that it's running properly. So we're looking to upgrade that so that we have the capacity to do that internally. It's something that just, died over time. And a lot of the systems that are in our schools are systems that are proprietary. And sometimes that proprietary software and or hardware is no longer available. It just becomes antiquated and they no longer support it in the same way that maybe if you have a Windows computer or something from 15 years ago, well, if you didn't upgrade Windows, it's no longer supported. So that's where Central Tree is. We also have, so that deals with that one space. And then I think the AC unit that takes care of the art room, music room, and then library underneath, they're taking care of that. They're working on that as well. But the classrooms are working. Chalks at Houghton. So we're still in the process of looking at some of the classrooms and some of the hallways. Specifically, the auditorium AC is not working at this time, but the HVAC system is. So that the air conditioning isn't, but and that's one of the issues that we've kind of run into, throughout the district. The HVAC system works in an office, but the AC unit might not work or needs some repair. So those are the things that we're dealing with. So Chalks at Houghton, we're in the process. Craig was actually over there yesterday and today, I believe, kind of going through that system, or those 2 schools, and looking at, all the classrooms just to kind of make sure that everything is working correctly in all of them. Davis Hill, we're kind of in the world of hallways and cafeteria. So the CAF is just one system that's tied back to the same one that runs those downstairs hallways. And that's a matter of just either replacing a motor or fixing some belts. These are all doable things ultimately. The Central Tree one could be a giant, if you wanted to do it absolutely perfectly, it could be a very expensive fix. But if you wanted to do it and have it work and have it, actually, we could actually do it and have it work in a way that we'd be able to kind of open schools and have things ready to go. It's not that expensive, and it's definitely something that we could do. So Davis Hill has always CAF classrooms look good. Dawson, we have, Dawson only has 2 sets of bathrooms, and one of the sets of bathrooms, the univent system is not working properly, so they're working on that. ECC, what they're doing is they're calibrating all the thermostats so that, rather than having to adjust the univent from the system itself, turn it off and on at the univent, they're calibrating the thermostat so that they're all going to be able to work correctly throughout the entire building. And again, ECC is probably one of our older. I'm in the oldest part of the building, and we have a few classrooms as well. but the 1970, 1960 edition on the backside where we have many classrooms. Again, those systems, haven't been updated in a long time. So we're looking at, Craig's working on those calibration systems. Glenwood is complete. Everything's up and running, going well. Mayo, the tech room, it's really the head end room where we have, where we used to really keep all of our servers and so forth. We're pretty much all cloud-based right now, so it doesn't really matter much. That's a small room, I believe, off the library. That system just isn't working correctly, so we're taking care of that. Mount View, there's a heating wheel in one of the units on the rooftop. That's a system that we're replacing. We've done a lot of work on those systems on top of the roof at Mount View over the past 3 to 4 years. So that's just one of the things that we're doing anyway. We were going to do it. Naquag now is, I think, 2 to 3 units, and those are classroom units that they are, again, replacing a belt or a motor. Paxson, this is a big job. We have a company that's actually running pneumatic lines throughout the entire building, so that we have proper air movement throughout the system in order to really ensure that the univents are working correctly. And that's really around the heat. We can turn all of the univents on, everywhere except for places where a motor is dead. You can have it running 24/7, and that's really when we're talking about air exchange, that's what we can do. What we're also trying to do now is make it easier for teachers to adjust the heat, or the head custodian to adjust the heat. And they're not running to an individual system and turning it on or having to shut it off, because when they turn it on, they can't actually adjust how warm or cold the thermostat is running. So that's what's happening with those pneumatic lines. Thomas Prince, there are 3 to 4 units in the building. There was one, I believe, in a cath that they're working on, and then a couple more classrooms that they're taking care of. And the high school is basically down to 1 unit. Again, we're looking at airflow in some of the interior classrooms. I believe I talked about this last night. Some of those interior classrooms have univents, where we're able to get airflow through, but we want to ensure that the systems are working properly. So that's kind of the update on the circulation systems, the HVAC systems per se. I can't say enough about how hard Craig has been working on just getting into every single building, every single school. He does this all the time, and he's very cognizant of the fact that we're all under a lot of pressure to get things done. So he's working beyond his typical hours to do this. One thing I did talk to him about yesterday was just the MERV 13 filters, and those are those really dense filters that some places have called for in terms of dealing with the COVID virus in the air. And because our systems are older, he said we can't possibly put MERV filters into our systems. One, because they'll get sucked in because the airflow is so restricted in a MERV filter, and by doing that, that could actually cause air to move on the sides, where the filter is, or it sucks it in, and the motor has to run so hard it's going to burn out motors. So what we're doing is we're replacing the filters on a regular basis, to ensure that the filtration systems are going to be more than adequate to deal with any air system or air issues in classrooms. So that's the update on that. I can tell you just a real quick, Dan has reached out to, I think, 5 or 6 companies around having an independent person come in and check our HVAC systems throughout the district. I'm looking at, I think it would be very challenging for a person to come through every single room as Craig is doing right now. We actually have a person doing it, so I feel good about that. But some districts have had a sampling done where they have someone come in and they do 5 or 6 classrooms. They take a sample and then they report back on that and they make recommendations. So, any recommendations that will be made to us, that kind of comply with DESI standards, we'll be talking with, or we'll be addressing. And I have a hopefully have a phone call with the HVAC specialist at DESE tomorrow or Thursday, and I'm going to talk to that person about what the specific metrics are that DESE is looking for. Again, they don't put anything in writing, and I want to just make sure that we're as close to what their expectations are as possible.
All right, thanks. I know I've got a couple questions. Does anybody else have some questions on that? I'll let you guys ask first.
I have a question. Thank you. That was great. Actually, the last thing you said was one of the questions I was saving for Monday. Monday night, about every classroom versus a sample. So that sounds like a pretty solid way to go of having it. Our guy go through every classroom and then just worry about a sampling. That sounds practical. My question is that, so you said about these HVAC systems are getting them up to work the way they're supposed to work, but none of these were built for the time of COVID. So that's the part where I want to make sure we're doing that next step of not just the airflow, moving things around, because if you're moving the virus around but it's circling all around, that defeats the whole purpose. So of those air exchanges of the filters, like how often are these filters? Can you give any more specific idea than just more frequently? Is there a timeline that's been determined?
So we'll probably end up doing this quarterly, so that what we'll do is go through and replace the filters. One of the issues, and this is going to happen everywhere, is that there is a huge shortage on filters right now. The demand is so high. So even your typical filters aren't necessarily available. So, we do have a pretty good stock in each building. Jimmy Cavella does a good job kind of building up that stock. So we're looking to try to do this quarterly. Because again, we want to ensure that whatever we're trying to do, is going to be as safe as possible. The one big thing we have to remember is that everyone's going to be wearing a mask for the most part. So that really cuts down on anything that's getting out into the air in the first place. It basically cuts it. It's 90%. So it's basically a 10% chance for stuff to get out. That's what I've been reading. So you throw in the air circulation to help keep the air moving throughout the room. Again, I think that will ultimately play a role. We're not, we're keeping our social distance. We're following all the DESE protocols, as we should. But yeah, that's where we're at with that. We try to look at it quarterly. But again, I think part of that's going to really be dependent upon having access to the filters in the first place.
Anything else, Linda?
Not yet, but give me time.
Okay.
It'll happen.
It always does. Sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So my basic thought is, and thank you for all of that, for all of that. Is all of this manageable before October 5th?
So manageable, that's kind of the operative term.
Okay.
None of this is really manageable, in all honesty, like everything
Fair.
that we're kind of doing right now,
That's
but
fair.
we're doing it. So we're doing our best. We will, what I just went through with you, we're really close. That's the good news. We're really close in a lot of places. Glenwood's perfect. The high school are 375,000 square feet. It's, we're basically down to one unit. They have been working overtime to get that building taken care of. So we're probably going to be good. Again, the issues that we're going to deal with, like if we're like, okay, we're going to put a lot of money into that central tree system, that might not get done by October 5th, because just to bring a company in and get onto their schedule, that might not happen till the middle of October, end of October. But if we're just going to fix it so that it runs and we have the air circulation, if we have to change the heating on it, we're going up on the roof, which is how we've been doing it. That's what we'll do. And again, we're kind of in a situation now where I think the town of Holden is actually they voted to support HVAC system replacement, including the building management systems. So it's really more around these really intricate and 21st century building management systems that weren't around, back in 99 or 2000. So Holden is, we have Mayo on the docket to probably be done sometime in January, February, maybe March. And kudos to the town of Holden for kind of just taking some of those funds and putting it back into the building. And I'm not saying other towns don't do that or don't attempt to. I think they're just taking a step to be really proactive about it. So again, that's something that'll be on the docket for all the schools there, with the exception of Mount View.
Okay, and thank you for that. And you're right, everyone is overwhelmed. Maybe the better way to say it, maybe the better way to look at it was November 18th, because that's when the. But I guess
I think we should be all set by then.
Okay.
And I can, not that I'm going to bet my job on it, but be pretty close.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. So I just have a couple of questions, mostly around Univents. When you were talking about the ECC, you said that they were changing it so that they'd be able to control them by thermostats, and it just popped up in my head. So the Univents will be able to operate full time, correct? It's just the thermostats will just control whether they're putting out heat or not.
Exactly.
Okay.
So one of the recommendations that we, you read about, like the Parabola project and so forth, it's, keep your Univents on as much as you can. That's good and bad, because you keep a Univent on 24/7, 7 days a week, you're going to burn it out, the motor eventually. But you're keeping the air circulation in the room, in the building. It's not stagnant. So it's definitely something we're looking at, maybe changing the times in which they work. Because again, most of our schools have, the ability to have timers associated with evening hours versus daytime hours where people are in the building. And, we're looking at probably extending that. So starts earlier in the morning, goes later at night, just to keep it running more.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, my question was just, looking at how everything's gone more energy efficient, it'll shut it down when it doesn't need heat. And that's the opposite of what we want now. So just wanted to make sure we had that ability.
Right.
And then I know I've gotten a few emails about it from both teachers and people in the community. Just, making sure that those are cleaned now and, stay clean moving forward. Someone included in an email relating to, like, you always see crayons and whatever in it. And I know I've seen that anytime I go into one. And that's just going to be one of those things that as these people go back into the schools, they're going to be like, this isn't clean. Like, I can see something there. So just make sure that that is ready to go as we go in.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Adam. And one of the things we're going to be asking teachers to do is really pay attention to their Univent system. So if the heat isn't working, if it's shutting off, if they don't feel as though there's enough air movement, we're going to want them to tell their principal, assistant principal about it immediately. Again, I'm hoping we're not seeing a lot of crayons stuck in Univent systems, but you never know. But we go through that during the summer, clean everything out. The other thing at ECC is we're bringing on another custodian. We're moving them over from another building that was split between two buildings, because right now we only have one person, and he comes in from basically 12 to 8, 12 to 9 every day.
Right.
And we're going to need someone on board, from basically 6 to 2. So there's overlap, but get in there, do the deep cleaning on a daily basis, especially in the ECC. So That's going to start, I believe, on Monday.
Okay. So that's all I had on the HVAC. Is there any other specific items? Oh, Carolyn, you got a question on HVACs. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So just because ECC is my home, when the thermostats are being fixed, does that mean if I go into one building, it won't be deathly hot, and if I go into another classroom, it won't be cold?
That's the whole point.
Okay, because that seems a very tall feat. So I'm glad to hear about that.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think it's something else. I don't know whether to bring it up now or later, but my question was more about people's concern about windows being opened, which relates to HVAC in terms of just general airflow. There's so many windows that don't open, don't close, or like in a high volume area, for example, like the bathroom when the kids do start coming back in. Like the addition of one of those air purifiers you've mentioned before, just in those kind of spaces where people are moving in and out of a shared space.
Yep, those are the things we're looking at. So, places that don't have, some of the older buildings that don't have adequate ventilation, we'll be putting in the HEPA filters. The room air filters with HEPA filters, the purifier, so that we're keeping the air moving throughout the space. And places, Sean was just in the building Friday, opening windows, and unfortunately, somehow it wasn't his fault, but at the same time, a fire extinguisher fell off the wall and went off. And
I heard that was the carpet guy, and there was
no, and then unfortunately, they got it out the building, set the alarm off. It was you don't want to see one of those go off and just leave it going. It's a lot of stuff. So that was my Friday morning.
I did have another question,
Yeah, go ahead.
if that's okay.
You reached your
I
max,
promise.
Linda. You're maxed out. You're maxed out.
Sorry, I'm gonna just I'm gonna go for it anyway. No,
Okay.
no, and that's it. It might just be a lapse in memory from the reopening plan, the document that was part of the that was shared earlier. For a protocol for if there is a problem in a classroom, like a system problem, right? So it's not if somebody's symptomatic or any of that decision tree, but if there is a problem in the classroom, will that classroom have to be evacuated, go to
Yep.
remote for the week and so like that day the problem is found and kids will be sent home right away? Or I mean, it's that kind of thing that.
Yeah. So what we would do is in any situation, the same way that we would if something happens in a room and we have to close it off for whatever reason, a fish tank explodes and there's water everywhere. We relocate the students to a different space. So we would do the same thing. Again, I think, in the worst circumstance, you would just be, if it's a univent system not working at all and there's just no air movement and yet there are no windows and you can't even open windows, we would just, okay, let's move the kids into the cafeteria. They're going to be there for the rest of the day, and we'd have Craig come over and fix it.
Linda set the precedent, so Linda, it's your fault. I have another question. If no one wants this, of course, in the event that there was, we had a school, any of them, where there was an outbreak, classroom or multiple classrooms, whatever. Does that affect what happens then with filters? Like, I know you were aiming for a quarterly rotation, for example. Do you say, okay, we had an outbreak, we have to go back? How does that work?
That's a good question, Jeff. I don't know whether or not that plays a role in it.
Okay.
Because again, I think what happened, the virus doesn't live very long, in terms of a time frame. So if there's and the way that I don't even know how the outbreak situation is ultimately going to work. We know we have the close contact situation now that just changed a little bit, and that's been updated. If there's a full blown outbreak, probably not a bad idea. If it's 2 classrooms, we know those are the 2 classrooms that got hit hard. That's what we'd be looking at doing. Just maybe
Okay.
changing the filters.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay. So I know moving forward for our next meetings, especially as we come up to October and November, if we could kind of get a read ahead on, just some sort of written document, even if it's just a outline of, these are the buildings, this is what we've, this many systems were good, this many systems we've gone in, repaired, this many systems we're still working on, a little, especially once we whittle it down, get some details on what we're working on.
Definitely. And, the other thing that we'll do is once we do bring on board a third-party person, we'll share the information with this body first.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that covers just about everything I've got on HVAC. Are there any other, I guess, building-specific topics, such as, I know there was a letter sent this week about, barriers versus masks for some of the service providers like PT, OT, speech, in cases where either they can't use a mask or they're really close to a student. And there was concern about only one provider or one divider being available in a building. Are there any updates on that? And then also any other specific issues you've been seeing in any buildings?
Yeah, I don't have an update on that. I thought Christine Smith might have addressed that last night, but maybe she addressed that with me this morning. I can't recall.
Said that they were recommending the use of masks and the use of a divider where it's not possible.
Right.
But the question is more, in those situations, are we prepared to be able to provide dividers, masks,
Yeah. So we have
just general.
Yep. So we have the masks, including shields, available, in that sense. So if there are situations where they have to be very close, again, you still have to keep at least the 3-foot distance associated with the social distancing. So we do have a person, Adam, who is our go-to handyman. He just takes care of he fixes doors, he builds things, he takes care of 13 schools, and he has been building acrylic shields or stands, like the pictures I showed you yesterday of central office on the HR side. He's been building those for all the schools nonstop since, probably early July. So he'll also have those available for different places, different schools. We've also purchased a few of those. They're expensive and they're not very good. The ones Adam makes are 1,000 times better. So I think we purchased every piece of acrylic in central Massachusetts, if not central and western Massachusetts. So we did a big run on it one day in early July, and we've stocked it all up. So we should be good to go with that. In terms of other buildings, again, it's general cleaning and so forth. So we just want to ensure that whenever we do bring the kids back in, everything's ready to roll in terms of the safety protocols and so forth, which is, again, that might lead into the building protocols and safety protocols that I shared last night with school committee. And I'm actually reviewing those they've gone out to staff, but we're reviewing those with building principals and assistant principals on Thursday, and they'll be going through those with all of the teachers. There's also a presentation that I've done associated with just safely coming into a building. Here's why you have to wear a mask. Here's I took slides from Framingham had a great presentation, so I took a lot from that. I took from CDC, and it's really around PPE, donning and doffing, social distancing, when to stay home if you're sick, when to call your doctor. A lot of that information is also rolled into the larger document that I shared with you, that has all the protocols directly from Mass, the DESE, and also the DPH, that just talks about what timeframes and different scenarios associated with, a student has it in the classroom, it's a positive test. Here's the first step. Here's A, here's B, here's C. Also part of that document are pretty extensive cleaning protocols associated with classroom spaces, offices, bathrooms, hallways, cafeterias. What I tried to do is have everything, in that document that could, not everything that can possibly happen, but it'll be a working document. I know Chris Smith, school committee member, mentioned last night that, it'd be nice if we could have some easy to read documents that parents could just pull up or students could just pull up and say, okay, here's what you do. There are some, DESE does have some charts that they've put together. And that's kind of, I think Bob Ember asked me that question. He's like, what would make things easier for you guys? And it's purely those types of things. We're recreating the wheel. When we have all this information, we put the stuff out there, and then we have, we're creating another PowerPoint presentation. We're creating another spreadsheet associated with something. So that's the frustrating part. But those are the two other big documents that are going out to staff and will be posted on the website.
Okay. Megan, you got a question?
Yeah, and I apologize, I'm in my car. So I really appreciate that document you put together with all the COVID steps. It really outlines it clearly. My question is, have you guys also kind of outlined the chain of command? Like, who is the COVID lead per school? And then who does that COVID lead then contact? I just want to make sure if a case does happen to occur at one of the schools, that the district kind of controls the flow of communication. And especially if it's at a middle or high school, all those kids have their phone out, they start texting, Mrs. Smith is sick and she's going home, and there's COVID at, Mount View Middle School. So have you kind of organized a flow chart of command of how that information would get to your COVID district lead and how that information then would be disseminated to the community?
Yeah, so one of the things that will happen is we're not going to make a diagnosis of COVID in the school.
Yeah,
that won't be us. We'll find out about it from either the Board of Health or typically from a parent of a student or an employee. That's basically how it will play out. Principals are the leads in all the buildings. They will be the one to disseminate any information that goes out. That will all come back up through central office. So that'll go through Bob, me, Brendan. The three of us are all, in the midst of kind of dealing with this. So anything that would then go out in front of the public to say, hey, here's what's happening, we have this going on, that'll be something that we take care of, not only at the at the school level, but also at the central office level.
perfect. That sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Any other, I guess, building specific items before we move on? All right. Let me just pull up. I know. Sorry, I just got lost. I've got 300 windows open. And the one I was using was was, I ended up using to send a link out for the beginning of the meeting. Okay. So I think one of the things that was brought up last meeting was discussions about classrooms without sinks, especially at the ECC. I don't know if you've had a chance to address that. Is it just going to be hand sanitizers in those rooms? Are there options we've been able to figure out?
So yeah, so we're, we do have, we don't employ plumbers, but we do hire plumbing services. So, we've done that already with our nurse's office over at ACC, where we did install a sink. So we're looking at classrooms that don't have sinks right now, whether or not we can actually put sinks in. If sinks are not, if we can't do it, we will have to, stick with the hand sanitizing system that has to be in play. There are, we have schools in the district that don't have sinks. I'm trying to think of the one specifically, but I do know that there are schools in the system that don't have a sink, and they'll have, as all schools will, all classrooms, they'll have the hand sanitizer, which, gosh, I think we have 1,200 gallons or 1,700 gallons ready to go.
Okay. Yeah, just thinking through it myself, I know, the ECC is more in need of sinks just because it's the younger kids. It's the kids that may be less likely to be able to use hand sanitizer or have some sort of aversion to it. Just things like that. Whereas they've been exposed to sinks a lot more. So yeah, I was just looking for an update. And as you go through, if you, just whichever way we end up going on that, just keep us updated. Let's see. All right. Any other questions on, I guess, physical infrastructure and stuff before we go on to, safety and security of remote learning plans? Anybody?
I have a very quick question about hand sanitizer. Do you know, is it unscented? Because that is really important to some kids.
I believe it is, but all hand sanitizer has like an odor. So even the hand sanitizer that is like odorless, you can still smell something. But yeah,
It's not like a fragrance.
I don't think it's like lavender or petunias or something like that.
Right.
I think it's fragrance free.
Okay.
I can find that out though. Dan, if that's just one of the things, if you can remember, Dan, that's a big one.
Got it.
Now, it feels small, but you know how that can be everything with how
that makes
often you're sanitizing your hands and
Yep.
handling the stressors of the day.
And I think what happens is oftentimes there's an aversion to hand sanitizer if there's an odor associated with it. So definitely want to focus on that.
That was a good question.
Adam, I have a question.
Yep. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So at the ECC, at our meeting today, our principal was letting us know that there was a, one of the concerns has been around carpeting because we have so much carpet at the ECC. And I'm looking for the word. It was like a carpet, not extraction, but basically there was something that was going to be cleaning the carpets and sanitizing.
It's an extractor, Carolyn.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Do you know, is there a frequency that would be happening or a protocol?
Not yet. We don't have a protocol yet for that, but because there's carpeting, any place like Houghton Choxet is like rug world. It's there's so much carpeting there. any place that has that, again, we just had it steam cleaned on Thursday and Friday. They were all cleaned. We're now buying machines that will do that. So typically we only do that once a year.
Right.
We're going to have to look at what what a good protocol would be for that. I don't have that yet.
Okay.
But
you.
we're purchasing them. Yeah.
Just quick housekeeping thing. I didn't assign anybody to take minutes. Is there any chance someone has been? You have? Okay, thanks, Jeff. I was hoping so as I was saying that, but thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. It saves me some work tomorrow too.
Sure does.
All right. Okay. If nobody has anything else, I'd like to move on to the safety and security for the remote learning and student health records. I know, Daryl, you had sent out this email to me. Let me see if I can just share it, and that'll make it easiest.
So what's amazing, Adam, I've been so busy, I don't remember sending an email to you on this.
It was like a week ago, so.
A week, like a year from me now. Okay.
Right. I'm sure. I don't know if that's big enough. I don't know how to make it bigger.
Are you on a Mac? No, you're on a Windows.
Yeah. Oh, actually, let me.
Yeah, perfect. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oop, too far. Stop.
That looks good.
Yeah. All right, there we go. I'm not cutting off any stuff. Close that. My to-do list. All right. So this is just some notes from Barry Sklar on medical records. Is in the SNAP Health Center, and it's hosted by their parent company, and basically just some stuff related to FERPA, HIPAA, and stuff like that. And then for privacy and security of video conferencing, talks about the Google Meet sessions. Basically, they're limited to wrsd.net, only being allowed to join unless you sit in the waiting room and someone lets you in. I know I've seen that with school committee meetings if I use the wrong account.
Yeah, I typically don't let you in.
I'm fine with that.
No.
It's been 8 seconds.
Yeah.
It's time to leave. Yeah. So, I think this covers some of it. I think some of my concerns about the medical side is not necessarily our medical records that we're going to be storing, but how we, making sure that, we're going to get info that so-and-so is sick or showing symptoms or has been diagnosed with something. And then, there's going to need to be some sort of communication sent out about that while also protecting the health information of that individual. So I think just to make sure that, one, the information that's coming in is protected and not released, and two, that there's some sort of, everybody that's involved in that process has a quick review of, don't say this, this is what you share, this is what the form should look like, again, modifying it however based on the situation, but just to ensure that all that information is secure.
And again, teachers are, this is just ingrained in their heads around, security, around privacy. FERPA. So all of those things are items that we review with teachers annually anyway. Typically for something like this is going to go right through a nurse's office in some form or fashion. So the school will get notified through that venue. Because again, it'll be a local board of health that hears about it, and then it'll come back in some form or fashion. So it's going to happen. It's inevitable. So we're just, we'll kind of see how it goes. The one item associated with us opening a little later, and I think someone said this the other day, is we have a lot of schools in the state who are going to open up on the 16th and the 17th, and hybrid. So they're going to be going through this process. So I think the bumps in the road are going to be hit by other districts prior to us even getting on the highway. So that's the good news in that sense. But yes, we'll make sure that all those privacy issues are dealt with, and we're educators are already really careful with that in the first place.
Okay. Then I guess, privacy, security of video conferencing, and other instances like that. It may be prudent during the next couple of weeks of PD, and this is just me thinking out loud. But mentioning to teachers to talk to their students about being on mute when you're not talking, things like that, just because everybody's home, everybody's got families around, and I mean these microphones pick up everything. Like
they're going to go through the whole protocol and all the processes associated with that. On top of the fact that we'll send something out, basically saying parents, if you're going to, we do not want you recording what's going on, because if again, there's a privacy issue associated with kids on a screen and parent videotaping, or not videotaping, but using a camera, whatever it is. So that's the expectation, and that was the expectation in the spring. We're going to continue with that same expectation this fall.
Right, especially with the with the Google Meet setup, everybody sees everybody else. It's not like the teacher can see everybody, but the students don't see each other. It's both good and bad. You get a little bit more sense of community, but it does open up potential privacy issues. So it's just being aware and addressing those as they come up. Does anybody else have anything on health, privacy, security?
Of course I do.
Of course.
So I'm just curious, because this is talking about Google Meet, but I know some teachers sometimes are using Zoom, or they did in the spring. There was kind of flexibility there. So if there is still flexibility on using Zoom versus Google Meet, what about those kinds of protections, knowing Zoom is particularly problematic these days?
So from my vantage point, it's only Google Meet. It's not Zoom. If people are using Zoom, then that's something that they shouldn't be doing. So yes, that did happen in the spring, because I think people were already using that platform, and then we had the Google platform. We're now, Google ready to go. We've purchased all the extra kind of extensions that go on to the new Google platform, and those will be ready in September. I keep pushing Barry. I'm like, when are they going to be ready? So they should be ready then. Zoom still has issues with security. And it happens at school committee meetings. It happens in, I think, select board meetings and so forth. So I've heard enough horror stories about that. So we're definitely, we're focusing on Google Meet, not on Zoom.
Okay, that's good to hear, because right, that's the last thing you want to have happen.
Yep.
Then I had a question about extra logins in terms of the parent side, and I guess if the PTO or something like that is asked to provide extra access for programs or something like that, would that be all lumped in with Clever? Is that going to be another avenue for a separate login?
We're going to put
Um,
we want one-stop shopping. So Barry is doing everything in his power to ensure that everything's going through Clever, or whatever one we want to focus on. That way, there's only one login. There, you're there, and then you have everything. You have all access. So if there was anything that we would purchase through PTO and then add, I mean, PTOs would help pay for things like Lexia at one time. Well, we're buying Lexia. We have Seesaw. We're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on online platforms and software programs. So probably won't have too many of those, but you never know.
Okay, just because from what I mean, from the parent side of, the getting started on the year, we don't have any solid information from parent world in terms of what those programs are yet. And so,
It
there
will
are
be
rumors
coming.
that
Yep.
that PTOs are paying for the 4th grade of Lexia, but not and so that's taking up all of the funds. And I mean, I have no idea how much of this is substantiated. So, but it's being talked about that I wanted to make sure that logins are still streamlined, because any extra password is another route for, a breach.
Yep. Now we're trying to put everything through one so that there's one password, and yes, for breach purposes, but also for, gosh, my kid has 5 different things that they need to get into. What's the password for this? I have a hard enough time doing it myself. So, Adam, is there anything else major that we have to kind of go through?
I think the only other thing would be the comment from the Holden Select Board, just asking about
Sure.
fields up at the high school.
Yep. So I can tell you, I had a scheduled conversation with Bob Levine, the chair of the select board. I have to push that off because I had a conflict today. So I'll be speaking with him soon, just about what they had talked about. Again, our issue as a district really comes down to just ensuring that it's not a dog park. Kids use the fields up there, and we're trying to be just cognizant of the fact that not all people are good about picking up after their animals, and I just do not want, and I know Principal Biendo, Mark Wild, who is the director of facilities in the building. We just want to ensure that people aren't using the turf field, as a place to walk their dogs. So we've even had, I just spoke to Bill about this last week, and we had issues associated with dog waste in the middle of the track, and they were starting to look at utilizing that space. So I will talk to. I'm going to talk to Chair Levine about that this week.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay, and thank you all. I appreciate the time here, and Dan is ready to roll. Take care.
Thanks, Daryl.
Thanks, Daryl. All right. So actually, we got through most of our agenda.
Adam, there's one item. It's not on the agenda, but I just want to make sure that you're all aware. Rebecca sent out late this afternoon the FEMA application in the backup to that. So it's not here.
I have that.
Yeah, you should all have it, Carolyn. I can send. Did you get it, Carolyn? Okay. So, do I have poetic license a little bit?
Sure, have at it.
Okay. So I think that you're aware. We've talked in previous meetings about MEMA and FEMA, Mass Emergency Management, and actually FEMA, the federal arm of that. And so we did submit an application quite some time ago, last spring, and just today we finalized what is the first project relative to COVID. And as you saw, okay, great. Yep, perfect. Yep, thank you. And as you saw in the first go around, we've submitted a claim, if you will, for approximately $129,188 and 72 cents. And in essence, and as you saw on the third page of this document here, this was primarily right there under materials. This was solely a lot of our PPE that we bought last spring. And Adam, I don't know if you can do it, but if you on the top there, if you can enlarge it, it gives the period covered. Yeah, right there. It should say, if you can make that just a tad bigger, it's for the period of February 1st. There you go. Yep, there you go. February 1st through last Friday. And whenever we submit a claim, they call it a project, if you will. So this is our first claim. And again, as you know from our meeting last night, we've also got some other federal grants as well that Deputy Superintendent Burlow has written, and we have received some, and we're waiting on the big grant, the almost $1.6 million. Associated with this and as part of this conversation, though, and I did reach out. We have a rep that we're working with FEMA, and I did ask a question. Can we submit for reimbursement all the HVAC work that we're doing? Because in the federal grant that Director Burlow submitted, 1572 and change, there was a gray area in terms of grant application, and the gray area was that you could put through, or you could build into your budget X dollars relative to HVAC if the need was relative to COVID. And unfortunately, we have these issues that we're addressing, but they've been there prior to COVID. In all honesty, I mean, COVID has brought it to the forefront for sure, but these aren't anything new. They really aren't. So we just made a decision that we're not going down that road because these are federal dollars, and we just don't want to be in a situation where they're really questioning the use of that grant for these HVAC costs. So I reached out to my rep, and he argued, and I've got it in black and white, but he's not the decision maker. Unfortunately, he's not the decision maker. He argued that the work that we're doing, and we put all our cards on the table, and we explained, what it is that we're doing, and we're not unlike, frankly, any school district in the country, frankly. That the work that we're doing here, that we've done and I continue to do, that we will be putting through for reimbursement. In the budget, we created a line, just one line in the expense budget. It's a COVID line. So any non-personnel related COVID costs, where we're just putting it into this line. Again, there's no allocation. The line was created like a month ago when we put, when we began FY21, and as we complete these projects, we're creating a list that we'll be submitting to the feds. And the way it works is that it's basically 75 cents on the dollar. And so with what we've submitted here, and again, it's not been fully vetted. There's another process, another layer that is above the gentleman that we're working with here. But if all pans out, and we've given him everything, the purchase orders, the invoices, the copy of the check, and everything, even the kitchen sink. Little levity. If it all works out, and the key word in that is if. we're looking at just under 97,000, 96,892. But again, you know, we gave them all the backup to those purchases, the 129 and change. And unfortunately, as you can imagine, well, two things. Number one, this is going to take some time. This is not going to get turned around the next week or two or three. This is going to be a couple of months. Frankly, I'm not expecting to hear anything from them anytime before December. You know, and that's on the early end. I hope I'm wrong, but you know, he did make me aware way back when that this is going to take some time to go through the full vetting process. And then secondly, and I read about this just the other day, and I heard about it as well, that they're potentially looking to scale back some of the dollars relative to FEMA across the country. So because, you know, we've submitted our first project, if you will, I worry that we may be the recipient of that cut. I hope I'm wrong there, because $97,000 is $97,000 that we truly need. So that's the first project that we've submitted. And again, as we spoke about earlier, the HVAC work, you know, we've got a definitive a hard deadline to meet for sure, you know, prior to November. So we probably won't be submitting for that project. And again, that's FEMA's term, probably not until at least Thanksgiving, when we've got all the invoices and we've, you know, paid the vendors and so on and so forth. So and again, if we submit prior to Thanksgiving or thereabouts, we probably won't see any cash if it does get supported till well after the holidays. But I wanted to bring the committee, bring you up to speed in terms of that. And again, that goes back to last spring. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks. Based on this, I'm not sure what force account means, but I do have a question. You know, are we able to include overtime that we've had to pay some of our employees to work on this, as well as, you know, perhaps contracting an HVAC contractor to come in and do the survey, and other things like that, you know, outside of the general things we're doing. You know, just, I guess, looking, say if they're cutting dollars and they cut it to 50% instead of 75%, it means that much more. We need to make sure we're really rolling up everything we can submit to them.
So to your questions, yes and yes. Again, in this first application, we did not submit any overtime cost yet. And you know, as Dr. McCall stated, both Craig and Adam have been putting in some yeoman time as part of that process, and we're going to put this through in round two. FEMA is looking for copies of the collective bargaining agreements. Number one, to substantiate the request. Number two, they were looking at timesheets and so on and so forth. So I guess you have to kind of weigh, if we paid a couple guys maybe $1,000 altogether in terms of overtime, is it worth, and without due respect,
Right.
is it worth putting through the effort to get all this together for maybe even 50% of that at that time? So,
Right.
so
Yeah,
that,
if 50 hours, is it worth 20 hours to try to get half of that back? And
correct.
understand
Correct.
that.
So that's something, you know, I'll need to figure out when we submit those costs. And then to your other question, again, the answer is yes. So again, once we complete the analysis, and we have the engineering firm come in, and whomever else to do the work that again Dr. McCall spoke about. And we get the invoices. Again, this is reimbursement, so we have to have all our ducks properly lined up before we can submit anything. and I mean they got to be all lined up, and they got to be in a very straight line, because and I appreciate that. No, I do appreciate that because you know, our rep, again, we have a rep, which is, I think it's great, who's working with us, and he's working on our behalf, so that when we do submit something, you know, someone from Washington isn't saying to him, well, they forgot to dot this I and cross this T. So we're kicking the whole thing out, and we'll see in 2 months. So I appreciate his incredible attention to detail, to ensure that, you know, what we submit. And again, this is just three pieces of paper. I mean, of a lot of paper that was submitted to them. I didn't think you wanted to see a lot of paper. I thought 3 pieces of paper would be sufficient.
No, I'm good with that. I deal with federal contracts every day, so I definitely understand. Yeah. Anybody have any questions about this? Nope. Good. All right. Yeah, and you know, definitely as we go, any other things like this that come up, you know, definitely let us know. You know, with the FEMA and, you know, also other things that we're putting in for to help pay for this. You know, a lot of it falls under business and finance, but there, I mean, this is definitely stuff that we're interested in. So.
Yeah, and I understand, and certainly I'll make you know, BNF aware next week. But you know, I think certainly it has a place in this audience, as well. You know, I mean, again, $129,000 in change of PPE, supplies and materials, and that's what we've been talking about here. We've been talking about HVAC. I think that's got a place here, and certainly it does at BNF. Again, you know, spending money out of a line where there is no allocation. I mean, our bottom line is good. We all know that. But again, and this wasn't budgeted either. This was not budgeted, and so it is what it is.
All right. Next item on the agenda is yeah, okay, I'm off mute. Is the basically prioritization of upcoming policy reviews. I don't know about you guys. I did not get a ton of time to look at this over the last week and a half or so. So I don't know if any.
Did you get my email?
Oh,
Sorry,
you did.
I did. I didn't spend that much time. I skimmed through, but I sent an email when it was on my mind.
Yeah,
So that was a while back.
Let me find that, because you did send that. I'd forgotten. I mean, we're getting so many emails every day in our WRSD. I'm losing stuff. Okay. All right. Sorry about this. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. So let me just present. Do you have any issue with me presenting your email?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So you had sent, and I'm assuming this is, since this is in numerical order, was this a, this wasn't necessarily in an order that you're like, this one's the most important?
No, I put it in numerical order because I live in fear of open meeting law. I thought
Fair enough.
I'm going to just
Fair
do, I'm not going to do any editorializing about this. Just.
Yeah, when only two people constitute a quorum, I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, and we're presenting it now anyway, so we're now covered.
Yeah.
So, you know,
My thought though was with the 7113 facility usage for daycare programs, and I linked them so you can, if you want to, if that'll work, I don't know with presenting.
Yep.
Because of the question of pods forming and that kind of thing, and using, I think that making sure that this doesn't create a lot of confusion. But I don't know. I mean, again, it was just a skim, so maybe I'm overly cautious or something.
Anna, can you just enlarge that just a tad, if it's possible? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
There we go. Yeah, that's interesting. So it's actually saying that, you know, we'll try to basically make daycare as available as possible for member towns. You know, and again, I think this is the first time reading it right now, but I think one of the keys is it shouldn't interfere with or take precedence over the existing K through 12 programs. But yeah, interesting. Okay, so actually, so it's providing. It looks like it's providing the town the ability to do it, not necessarily like people developing pods and requesting space or something like that. You know, unless a town came in and said, we would like to move everybody in, like, you know, that might be an issue. So, you know, and then it does come in with the should meet all or shall meet all state, local, and federal requirements. I think spacing would be one of those requirements. And if what we're doing is working on the buildings in order to get people in and meet those requirements, that means we can't meet those requirements now. But yeah, this is interesting. When was this last reviewed? 98. So yeah, this is definitely ripe for a new review. And again, this is what I saw in most of these is, you know, late 90s, early 2000s was when most of them were done. Okay.
Another couple ones that I thought, I don't know if there's specific issues with them, but just with the energy efficient equipment, it's about purchasing and then management conservation, considering all of the airflow that we need to be talking about. Energy efficient is not necessarily how we want to be going right now. You know, when you're talking about having a tight seal for
Right.
heating and cooling, that's not what we're about for this year. So I didn't know if there's anything tying us, if we need to suspend it or something like that. I don't know. But those were the two ones that I just thought were particularly sticky versus other ones that might just be old.
So Linda, are you asking that we look at these two policies here and for our next meeting, come back with and work on a draft of amending the policy?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure what I was basically thinking to leave it to this discussion on if that's worthwhile or if it's not necessary. But
Well, that first I'm sorry, Jeff. That first policy's got some mileage on it. I'll say that. It's 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
I think it's probably due for a review.
Yeah, and just to make sure it's in line with, what we're doing now with the daycare program that I think we run at the high school, and how it works out. Yeah, because I'm sure most of these are policies people aren't even considering right now. So it might be a good idea to at least address it and be like, yeah, the committee's decided to ignore this policy for the next year.
Well,
Whatever.
that's actually kind of what I was going to say, but we'll you can be the author, and I'll just sit back. No, I actually that was actually the gist of what I was going to say, is that we might have to. I mean, because all of these that she's brought up, Linda, these are all excellent points. I can absolutely see why these are relevant to our current circumstances. I wonder if well, I don't know if it's I don't know. Maybe one idea is to simply kind of have a broader statement that says, because of the crisis, we are having to, suspend or modify a few of these things. I mean, I guess if we wanted to get cute, we could say something like the energy efficient purchases. I mean, technically, we're not buying energy efficient stuff. We're just running it all the time. It's not like we're buying the wrong thing. We're just we're working it like a dog because we have to.
Yeah. So I think I'm not sure. I don't think we're going to be ready to bring anything forward at the next meeting. But I think for our next meeting, it might make sense to look at these and have a good discussion and maybe draft. I think the right way would be to just do a resolution for the committee, and then it doesn't require multiple readings and all that. It's just the committee has decided that if any of, and then list out the policies, is a hindrance to battling the COVID response, we can ignore it for the next 365 days, or whatever we want to word it. But I think that's not a bad idea. Then we don't necessarily need to dig in, amend the policy, read it a few times. We can just come up with a resolution that, as a body, we've agreed to ignore our policies for a set period of time. But yeah, that's interesting. It's a good catch. And I don't know when these transportation ones were last looked at. So it was amended 11 years ago on routes and services. This was written 25 years ago and then re-amended 13 years ago. Yeah, I think they're all definitely right for review. And I mean, I believe by policy, we're at least supposed to, I guess, I forget the wording, but like basically ratify it every 5 years or so. Like we bring it up, do a reading, do another reading without amendment. We all agree it's good. So yeah. And it might be good to check the MASC policies related to these as well, and see if there have been updates to what they recommend. So, all right.
I
So,
thought too with the school with busing that there might be specific, because that's another hurdle for COVID.
Yeah.
That there might be, I don't know, something I know, but yeah, good. I'll stop now.
No, that was fine. I was just pulling up the next one to see the dates. Yeah, even this one's 13 years old. So, All right. So I think for our next one, let's take a look at, did I open the basic facility use one? Actually, was this? Yeah, okay. This one hasn't been amended since 2008. And this kind of ties into, I know, stuff that's been going on in business and finance related to changing of the fees and things like that, Dan.
Yeah, my predecessor, Joe Scanlon, I think started that you maybe were on BNF, Adam, at that time.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of years, and I started the dialogue. I think when I first started here, looking at some of those facility use fees and so on and so forth. I think it makes sense because we addressed that, to look at this as well and bring this up to speed.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think first step for our next meeting, come up with some sort of statement or whatever on if there's any policies that we need to ignore during this COVID response. And then, like, I don't know if there's anything related to students in the classroom, anything like that, but
Adam, what comes to my mind, and Daryl and I are meeting tomorrow, and I've got a meeting on Thursday with our transportation provider. There's a couple policies here on transportation. I don't have these, like ridership, for example. I mean, we know with the DESI guidelines now that we know, like with our 83 passenger buses, that the most we can put in that bus is 25 people. And I don't know if these speak to that at all, but I think that's an example of where maybe we'll need to do some type of moratorium on the ridership, simply because there's a greater force, if you will, above us. Dictating is not the right word, but guiding, if you will, in terms of our operation. Although this doesn't really speak to the ridership.
yeah, this doesn't in it, and it does have exceptions to these guidelines, maybe made at the discretion of the superintendent. So,
Yeah. I mean, for example, parent volunteers. If we're limited to even 21 students on a bus, every seat is a precious seat on that bus.
okay. All right. So, yeah, I think definitely, order of priority, it's addressing anything to be ignored, modified, or just reconsidered for the next year. And then almost just start at the top of the list and work our way down. Then maybe as we go, people will go, oh, let's pull this one up in front of the line. So I'll take this list and put it in, and then put kind of everything else related to us under it, and we'll just work down that list as we go, maybe attacking, one a meeting if we can. And this is sometimes mind-numbing work, so maybe we'll skip a meeting and not do it every meeting because that's painful. But it at least should be something that we go, yes, this one's still good, no change, or something. So maybe I'll throw some easy ones in there. But anybody have any issues with that or any other input? No. All right.
Hey, Adam.
Yeah.
Could I just either have that email sent to me, or if you just tell me the place where to find these policies?
Sure. So all the policies are, if you go to, actually, I will show you. I'm right there right now.
It's on the website.
Yeah. So if you go to wrsd.net and you click on school committee,
Okay.
this is what it pulls up. And, right here. And then if you go down to policies, the ones we're mostly looking at is the 7,000 series right here.
Okay.
Those were all the ones that she had pulled out. There's some other ones in here that weren't in there. We should probably look at most of them if another subcommittee hasn't addressed it recently. But the ones she pulled out are kind of probably the more pressing ones.
Okay, so if you determine that we're going to have like an assignment of one policy for the next week, you'll just let me know which one that is, so I have my homework.
Yeah. So we'll put it on the agenda, and we'll try to get that agenda out. And by the next meeting, maybe I'll put like the next 3 we're going to look at.
Okay.
If we knock one out, we'll just move it up the list. And does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay.
I think, Adam, if we do one policy per meeting, my hair is going to be as long as Rip Van Winkle's hair.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of an aggressive idea. I want to keep the 3 policies there, and I'm assuming it's going to be the thing at the end of the agenda that we're like, I'm not doing that this week, or let's take paragraph 1. Okay, that one's done. Something like that.
It's kind of scary when Daryl leaves the meeting. I try to add a little bit of levity here. You guys aren't going to invite me back.
We're going to assign you a policy every week.
Bring it on. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Yeah, because we know you're just not doing anything right now. It's been easy times, right?
I have too much fun listening to these meetings, Adam. You rock facilitation.
we
You
try
do.
to
It's so easy. It's so easy and calm. Really great job.
Thanks. So on that note, if there isn't anything else, we need to set our next meeting.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
A question. Yep.
So I just want to be super clear about PPE because I think that's part of what makes people panic about going back into the building with students. So when I know that Daryl says that there's plenty available for each school. Do we know how much, like what the system is going to be for how people access that and how frequently and just something really clear and concise that people can reference?
I don't think I've necessarily heard that yet.
Okay.
Hopefully over the, these beginning 2 weeks for teachers, that's ideally, I mean, if that's not something addressed, I would be very concerned.
I remember Daryl saying, according to DESE guidelines, which I don't know off the top of my head, but each staff would have 1 mask per disposable mask per day. And then there are shields available, but I don't know that everybody has a shield. And there's gowns and gloves available, but I don't know that everybody would have that.
Dan, can I jump in?
Yeah.
So Carolyn, be happy to get you that information tomorrow, and what I can do at some point tomorrow, not 8 o'clock in the morning, maybe 8:05. And then what I can do is that I'll follow up individually with each member here. Again, to Linda's point, I don't want to be the person that violates the open meeting law either. I don't look good in stripes.
Blind carbon copy anything you send us.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
Use
please, blind carbon
copy.
copy. Please,
All right.
please make my
Okay,
job.
I'll work with Rebecca to make sure that I don't
There you go.
do something incorrect and I get in
Yes.
trouble. Jeff, if I could just circle back with you just to make sure I've got Carolyn's request correct, and then I'll follow up and get your response to that tomorrow. Is that okay, Adam?
So 8:05, she gets her response, and then by 8:15, you'll have a policy done?
She might get a response by 8:05. I'm not guaranteeing a policy by 8:15.
Dang.
It wouldn't actually be a policy, it'd be a protocol.
Okay.
It'd be a protocol.
Thank you. No,
Let's get a coffee in there, and then it'll be done.
In all seriousness, Dan, thank you for your help. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah. I'll get that for you.
Okay, good. Yeah, and Carolyn, for the source of a lot of that, what the items are and how many and things like that, DESE came out with something, I believe it was late June, but it's one of the things posted on the DESE website. One of their guidelines, it's like, for every nurse or per building, the nurses should have access to the gowns and this, and it had how many per week and things like that. So I think a lot of it is based on that.
The other thing too, Adam, is again going back to the FEMA application. Again, we gave them all the backup. It's public information. The purchase orders we probably put on the purchase orders, for example, that we bought 1,000 gowns. I'm just using that as an example. If you're curious about that, because again, we had to provide that level of detail to the feds for that application. And again, as Deputy Burlow stated last night, in the COVID grant, the 1,572,000 and change, and there's another grant. There's also an itemization of PPE supplies as well. But that's not in yet. We're still waiting on approval of that grant. So.
Can I ask one very quick question, or else you can push me off for later? But it is about PPE. The updated guidance had about if multiple students would be in a medical waiting room at the same time, that they need to have surgical masks, and that changed from previous instructions. So I just wanted to ask, because I didn't see that in the list from yesterday about surgical masks purchased. I just wanted to check on that.
So, Linda, the guidance literally changes on a daily basis. It truly does. And if that wasn't on the original listing, it'll be incumbent upon us to ensure that we're consistent with the guidance and that we purchase the appropriate mask. So I guess to make a short question to the point answer, we'll need to ensure that we get that. And again, that's with a federal grant. If you say you're buying widgets, well, you got to buy widgets. You can't deviate from that, as Adam probably knows. So we probably need to use the general fund where, we have the flexibility to buy a blue mask as opposed to a yellow mask. I think you get my point. Is we've got that flexibility to address the daily changes that are coming out in terms of the PPP guidance.
At least at the ECC, I know that they have already in stock the little mini kind of kid masks, which is really cute and sad at the same time. So I don't know how much and how far those will last, but we do have some on hand since ECC is kind of first up for business.
Yeah, I know at the meeting last night, I had actually asked the question on what the student masks were, and that's exactly what they said. They were the mini ones. And I think they had 500 of those on hand now, and I think maybe more on order. I'm not sure. But I'm gonna post something up so that it is a matter of public record, because I want to email it to everybody so that everyone has a copy. Just it's something I think we've all gotten before from Daryl, but this way it's on the record and there shouldn't be any issue. Megan, do you foresee an issue with that? Never mind, she just left. I'll make that decision and I'll take the heat if it's wrong. So, and then we can try to wrap up real quick after. Okay, so this is a memo from June 5th from Commissioner Riley. And it is just, guidance on the required safety supplies. And I know this is what the district used to look at, what we were going to do for everybody based on number of staff and things like that. So I'm scrolling through it. But, this is kind of the key parts. So per 100 individuals, per week, there's how many masks for students, teachers and other staff, school nurses, health providers, and then it goes into how much we should buy for 12 weeks if everybody's in school 100%, if it's hybrid 50%, if it's hybrid 25%, and how these assumptions are there. And then it goes into other equipment, based on, and this is based on one staff, and it's not necessarily every staff member, but this is where the district needs to go. Okay, we're buying it more for these, and not necessarily for every teacher, because every teacher doesn't need a gown every day and stuff like that. But a special ed teacher may see that. It might only be once a week, once every 2 weeks, but they're more likely to encounter it than a regular teacher where they can just say, go see the nurse, something like that. So, then building supplies and, how many gallons of hand sanitizer, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll send this out to everyone, just so you have it. I think it came to the committee, I don't remember, but when I was on the task force, this is something that we had referenced, so. All right. Okay. Any last PPE items? Nope. Okay. Next meeting. Let me see. I had my calendar out. So our next full school committee meeting is on the 14th. Do we want, and then school starts on the 16th. For remote, I'm sorry, for remote. So I guess based on those two dates, do we want to meet before the school committee meeting? Or do we want to push it off for 2, maybe 3 weeks? What are people's thoughts? Because
I don't know.
But I don't want to do meetings all the time either.
I don't know if I have a voice in this at all, but there's a lot going on in the buildings, for sure. And by the middle of September, we'll be very much involved with the HVAC work and the work I'm doing around, the engineering firms, et cetera. My 2 cents, and again, I apologize if this is what happened. The superintendent disappears. The business guy gets involved and he talks too much.
It's fine. It's either that or Daryl talks too much. So either one. we got to deal with one of them.
I don't think you want to push it off to the middle end of September. And even if you had like an hour catch-up meeting before the school committee meeting, and I guess the agenda would just be kind of to catch up, because these past couple of meetings, they've been good. But there's a lot that you've talked about, and you're not going to get that level of detail. So I think just kind of a status update, maybe before the school committee meeting. My 2 cents worth. And I shouldn't be speaking for your time, because you're all busy as well. You get a life outside of here.
That makes sense. So, based on that, does it make sense to have a meeting at 6 o'clock on the 14th, so an hour before the school committee meeting? It makes those long nights for us, but it also keeps it to only an hour meeting, and we're only meeting once that week. And then I would maybe look at meeting on the 22nd and getting a really solid update on, yeah, because by the 14th, a bit of an update, and maybe we can get that outlined list from Daryl of the status of everything in the buildings. And then on the 22nd, do a longer meeting, actually 21st or 22nd or 23rd, and do a longer meeting looking at more updates on HVAC and other items, and then look at a policy or two. Not look at a policy and decide where we want to go, not or two.
And Adam, just so that I'm clear on the policies, do you want administration to like take each policy and take a crack at it, or do you just want to put like the very first policy there up for discussion, or like two policies up for discussion with the group? Do you want us to again, do you want us to take a crack at it and bring it back to this group here for discussion, or how do you want to proceed?
So I think what I'll do is I'll generate a list of kind of the order, and then depending on the policy, I might send it to you and Daryl and just say, we're planning on discussing this. If you guys want to take a look at it, and give you, plenty of time to take a crack at what it is. But then we can come into the meeting and use that as the starting point if you want, or if
Sure.
you guys say it's good, we can use that as the starting point. And I might even send you that and then the current MASC policy, and we can do a comparison and go.
Yeah, it's been my experience that I think it's helpful if we give you folks in advance a draft of what we'd like the revised policy to look like, and then you can go from there. And again, in doing that work, we can certainly look at mask policies that probably a little bit more current relative to that there, and look to incorporate those changes. And maybe you'll see it and you'll say, hey, this is good to go. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Yep. Actually, I'm just going to the latest when Rebecca sends it out, the anybody, the updated listing of meetings. Is that what it's called? Listing?
Posting?
Posting. I just want to make sure there's nothing else before the meeting. So apologies. Okay, so Ed said before the meeting, so I don't think that really creates a conflict with us. Is anyone not? Are you guys on education? No. Okay.
And does Daryl go to education, or does he come to wherever he's needed?
Usually Burlow does, right?
Deputy Burlow attends Ed Sub, and we've had meetings, Adam, in the past prior to school committee.
Yeah.
And he's typically at these meetings here.
Okay. All right. So unless anybody disagrees, let's pencil in 6 p.m. on the 14th. And then, does anybody have a preference for the week of September 21st?
I would prefer the 21st only because I'm getting my furnace cleaned that day, and it would be a really nice subject streamline. But actually, I don't have a preference.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just discuss your HVAC. And I'll keep coming in and like, actually, I've got a question.
You know that I do that, right? You know that that's what happens. No, but I don't have a preference.
Actually, I
Okay.
just saw Carolyn's note, Adam. Yeah, there is a conflict on the 21st, because you're in management.
Oh, yeah, that would
Thank you.
work.
Nice, thanks, Carolyn.
Yep. Yeah, so there's a meeting the 21st for management, and that's the only other meeting that week. So 22nd or 23rd. So actually, let's set for 22nd or 23rd, and Dan and Daryl can look at their calendars and see which one works. Does that sound good? I'll leave that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Any new business?
Carolyn's got a question.
Sorry.
Oh, no. All right. I'm just going to mute. Oh, I don't have the controls. All right,
I don't know if I'm supposed to be a silent observer, but I'm clearly not. So you had said, Adam, you alluded to Daryl having a document or a form that will have an update per building on HVAC stuff. Did I hear that right?
So when we were talking, I had said I would like to see that at upcoming meetings.
Okay.
So I'll go back to him and say,
Okay.
have that, just even if it's very, very draft, quick bullets meeting for then.
If I may, I think, Adam and Carolyn, what you're looking for, at least when I heard that discussion, what went through my head is that you're looking for a schedule of deliverables. And by schedule of deliverables, you're going to have the respective building. Let's just say it's Mount View there. Let's take the buildings in Holden. You're going to have each building listed, and then next to that building, you're going to have the identified HVAC issues in that building, whatever they may be. There might be one issue at Mount View, and there might be 5 issues at the high school, and then you're going to have like the beginning date, but more importantly, the estimated ending completion date of the work. And the completion date might be October 31st, and then there'll be like a 4th or 5th column without any comments. I think that's what you're looking for, and that's not a really detailed document, but I think it'll give you the information that you're looking for. What's the problem? Where's the problem? What's the status of the problem, and when's it going to get fixed? And if it's not going to get fixed for 6 months, why is it taking 6 months to get it fixed? Well, because we gotta buy an entire unit and put it on the roof, and that thing is in production, for the next 5 months. I think that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So if I may, it's a schedule of deliverables relative to the HVAC issues. Is that fair? And I don't want to put words in someone's mouth, but that's how I'm interpreting the task.
Yeah, no, that's it exactly. And it, especially for the next one, it doesn't need to be super detailed. I mean, like, this is where we'll look at it and go, okay, this is great. Can you add a little more detail here? You don't need, whatever. But the only other thing I think I would add to what you had is, like just using Mayo as an example. Mayo, it's got 74 units that were inspected. And if there's ones that weren't inspected, I would like to see that. But
Yeah.
74 units, all inspected. Issues were found on 3. These are the issues. They'll be addressed by this date, something like that. And then for the major issues, then get into the details, like it's going to take 6 months for the system to move, whatever.
And why don't we do this, Adam, just so that you as a committee have the appropriate information. I can work on a draft of a document, and I can get it to you in advance of the meeting, and just take 1 or 2 buildings and say, is this what you're looking for, and you think this will pass muster with the subcommittee, so that we're not giving you something on the night that we meet and you say, this really isn't what I was looking for. Why don't we do that?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks.
And I'll get that to you in advance. So I'll get that to you in advance of the meeting on the 14th. Again, so that the committee at least has an update, and then on the subsequent meeting on the 22nd and 23rd, whatever day it is, we can get into the meat and potatoes of that. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. All right. Any other new business on the agenda? Nope.
I'll just say something. So Carolyn, in all seriousness, I probably won't have that for you at 8:05 tomorrow morning, but I'll get it to you by the end of the day tomorrow. Just so I'm clear, you're just looking for a response relative to the protocol on the accessing of PPE supplies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So before Dan speaks again, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Feeling the love. I'm feeling the love.
We have fun. Anybody?
I will move it, but I'll just say this, Dan, don't cut your hair. I move the
Yeah,
motion.
no, I'm loving it.
I'll
It's
second
recorded.
vote.
That's what my wife said. Don't cut the hair.
All right. We have a motion. We have a second. Linda?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Everybody else? Yes. I vote yes, and the meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for
See
not
ya.
taking
Good night.
ourselves too seriously and still getting good work done. So.
Good night.
Absolutely.
Okay, take care.
All right. Take care. Don't forget to stop the recording. And
Doing it right now, I think. All right.
Perfect.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Thanks all. Bye.